You ever read something and it just stops you cold? Like you're sitting there thinking you're just flipping through pages, but then a line hits you so hard you got to close the book. Sit back and just breathe for a minute. Man, that's what happened when I started reading the Quran. Now look, I ain't no scholar. I ain't no preacher. I'm just a man who's seen a lot, failed a lot, and learned a little along the way. But I can tell you this, that book right there, that ain't just paper and ink. It's power. It's peace. It's truth. I remember the first time somebody handed me a Quran. I was in Dubai doing an event, and this young brother walked up all polite and said, "Mr. Harvey, I just want you to have this." I looked down, and it was this small green book, gold edges, Arabic on the front, and I said, "Man, I appreciate that." He smiled and said, "Don't read it like a story. Read it like it's talking to you." And I ain't gonna lie, that line stuck with me. So one night back at the hotel, I opened it up. Didn't know where to start, just flipped it open. And the first verse my eyes landed on was indeed in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. And man, I felt that because my whole life I've been trying to find that rest. Trying to fill my heart with success, money, jokes, applause. But no matter how high I got, there was always something missing. And right there in one line, that book told me what I've been looking for all along. Now, let me tell you what's wild. The Quran don't read like any other book. It don't start with once upon a time. It don't end with the end. It's more like a voice speaking to you from somewhere higher. You read one line and it'll make you feel small. Then the next line will lift you higher than you ever been. It don't just tell stories. It tells you what those stories mean. I read about Moses, peace be upon him, and I saw myself in his doubts. I read about Joseph, and I saw my own years of struggle of losing and rebuilding. And when I read about the Prophet Muhammad, I saw what leadership with mercy really looks like. It ain't power, it's patience, it's prayer, it's trust in God. When everything looks impossible, I started underlying in verses thinking, man, who writes like this? Then it hit me, this ain't a writer. This is revelation. This is the same voice that created the world, now speaking through words so even the lost can find their way home. Now, let me tell y'all something. I done read the Bible my whole life. That's my foundation. Has taught me more about grace than anything else. But when I opened the Quran, I realized God don't belong to nobody. He speaks through what he wills, to who he wills. And truth recognizes truth no matter where you find it. What blew my mind is how consistent that message is. Everywhere you turn, it says, be grateful, be humble, do good. Don't cheat nobody, help the poor. Forgive the ones who wronged you. I said, hold up now. Truth don't need a new style. It's the same message wearing different clothes. But here's what got me the most. How it talks about life. Man, the Quran don't sugarcoat nothing. It don't tell you everything's going to be easy. It tells you you will be tested, you will fall, you will lose. But if you stay patient, you will rise. And that line right there, that patience thing that hit me like a brick. Because I've been impatient my whole life. Always wanted things on my time. But that book taught me, you ain't on your time, you on God's time. And his clock don't run late. I never forget reading one part where it said, so, which of your Lord's favors were you denying? And I had to close that book, man, because I started crying. I thought about my wife, my kids, my career, the nights I almost gave up. The times I said, God, where are you? And the times he answered, even when I didn't deserve it. And I said to myself, how many of his favors have I been ignoring? That's when I knew this book don't just talk to you. It talks through you. You can't read it without seeing yourself in it. It'll call you out, but it'll also call you home. And that, my friends, is why I call it power. Because the real power ain't in what it say. It's in what it does to you after you hear it. Now, let me tell y'all something. When you start really reading the Quran, not just skimming it, not treating it like some ancient poetry, but really letting it sink in, you realize this book is alive. It's not history. It's not philosophy. It's a mirror. You look into it and it looks back at you. See, I used to think wisdom came from experience. You know, getting old, messing up a lot, falling down, getting up. And don't get me wrong, that'll teach you plenty. But when I opened that book, I learned that real wisdom, that divine kind, don't come from trial and error. It comes from listening. Because the Quran don't waste no words. Every line got purpose. Every story got a heartbeat. There's one verse that hit me like a thunderbolt. It said, indeed, with hardship comes ease. Now, I have been through some hard times, y'all. I lost it all twice. Had moments where I thought my career was done. My life was done. I was praying, crying, trying to understand why the pain wouldn't stop. And when I read that line, with hardship comes ease, I had to read it again. It didn't say after hardship. It said with, that means your blessing and your burden show up together. The problem and the purpose, they hold hands. And man, that changed how I look at everything. Now I used to pray like, God, get me out of this. But now I pray, God, get me through this. Because if He sent me to it, there's something inside that He wants me to learn. And let me tell you something. That realization right there, it gave me peace I've been chasing my whole life. See, when you get older, you start looking back at your journey. All them things that hurt you, all the people that left, all the times you said, why me? But when you've been through enough storms, you start seeing the pattern. You start realizing every why me was really God saying, because I'm teaching you something special. And the Quran, it don't let you forget that. There's another line that shook me. It said, and whoever puts their trust in Allah, He is sufficient for them. Now, listen, that right there is heavy, because we live in a world where we trust everything but God. We trust our money. We trust our plans. We trust our reputation. But when all that falls apart, who you got left? That's when you learn. If you ain't got trust in the one who made you, you ain't got nothing. I remember one night sitting alone in my backyard. It was late, quiet, stars out, and I was thinking about how far I came from a broke man, sleeping in a car to standing on stages across the world. And I realized every step of that journey, I thought I was in control. But now, man, I was just following a script already written for me. And that's what the Quran keeps reminding you. Your story ain't random. Your pain ain't pointless. Every test is tailor-made to shape your soul. Now let me tell you what else got me. How the Quran talks about the heart, man. The way it talks about it. You start understanding that this thing in your chest ain't just pumping blood. It's where your soul lives. It says it is not the eyes that are blind, but the hearts. And I thought, man, how many years did I walk around seeing the world, but not seeing what mattered? I could see a paycheck. I could see a camera, but I couldn't see peace. Couldn't see gratitude. Couldn't see purpose. That's when I started praying different. Not God, make me successful, but God, make me awake. And that's the beauty of that book, man. It wakes you up. It don't scream at you. It don't threaten you. It just holds a mirror up and says, take a good look, brother. You ready to grow yet? Now let me be real with y'all. I didn't understand everything I read. There's some verses that still got me thinking. Something that scared me too. Because when it talks about the day of judgment, about accountability, that's serious business. But instead of fear, it gave me focus, made me want to do right, not just when people watching, but when nobody is. Because that book reminded me God sees it all. The quiet good deeds, the secret sins, the intentions behind every smile. That's power. When a book makes you check your own heart like that, that's power. And you know what else blew my mind? The balance. How it talks about justice and mercy in the same breath. It'll tell you God is strict in justice, but then remind you He's the most forgiving. And that's how life's supposed to be, man. Firm but fair, strong but kind. That balance right there, that's the part I've been trying to learn my whole life. One day I was written a verse that said, whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it. Now, that's something else, ain't it? Not pounds, not ounces, an atom's weight. That means nothing you do good ever disappears. That smile you gave somebody, that dollar you handed to a man on the street, that moment you forgave someone when you didn't have to, God saw it. And one day you're gonna see it too. That right there gave me hope, man. 'Cause this world will make you feel like your good deeds don't matter. Like people forget. But that verse said, God don't. I started realizing the Quran ain't trying to make you Muslim just for the sake of a label. It's trying to make you human, to bring you back to the basics. Truth, humility, love, justice. It don't talk about domination. It talks about purification. It don't say be better than them. It says be better than who you were yesterday. And that's what hit me hardest, because ain't that what we all need? A book that don't just teach rules, but teaches change. Now, I done read self-help books my whole life, but they all say the same thing. Manifest your dreams. Think positive. Visualize success. The Quran, it don't say visualize. It says pray, work, trust. And that right there, that's divine simplicity. That's real. So now every time I feel lost, I go back to them pages. I don't always understand every word, but I always feel every word. And that's how I know it's from God. Because truth don't need translation. It just needs your heart to be open. Man, if you told me 10 years ago that I'd be sitting up late at night reading the Quran and crying over a verse, I'd have said, boy, you out your mind. But God got a sense of humor. He'll bring you right back to humility. And now I know that book wasn't made to sit on a shelf. It was made to move souls. Now listen, after reading that book, after sitting with those words, I realized something powerful. Faith ain't about who shouts the loudest. Faith is about who listens the deepest. And I ain't talking about listening to preachers or scholars or even me. I'm talking about listening to your soul. Because the truth don't scream, it whispers. And the Quran, man, it whispers right to your heart. See, before all this, I used to think religion was a competition. Who's right? Who's wrong? Who's going up? Who's going down? But when you start understanding, instead of arguing, you realize God ain't impressed by arguments. He's impressed by humility. The Quran kept reminding me it ain't about the title, it's about the truth. It don't care what you call yourself. If your heart ain't clean, your words ain't kind, and your hands ain't helping nobody. And I'm going to tell y'all something real personal. There was a moment I'll never forget. I was reading a verse one night and it said, "Indeed, Allah does not burden a soul beyond what it can bear." And I broke down, man. I mean broke down because I realized every storm I ever faced, every loss, every betrayal, every sleepless night wasn't punishment. It was preparation. God knew what He put inside me. He knew I could carry it even when I thought I couldn't. That verse, right? There that changed the way I see pain. See, the Quran don't just comfort you. It calls you. It calls you to stand up, to forgive, to serve, to think, to thank. It don't say stay broken. It says rise. And I started realizing faith ain't supposed to make life easy. It's supposed to make you stronger. Now, people ask me all the time, Steve, what did the Quran teach you the most? And I tell them, it taught me the difference between noise and voice. Noise is what the world gives you. Fame, opinions, gossip, fear, voice. That's what God gives you. That inner compass that says, do good even when it's hard. Be kind even when they ain't. Tell the truth even when it cost. You. That's the real power of that book. It don't just tell you what's right. It makes you want to do right. And man, the way it talks about forgiveness, that humbled me. There's a verse that says, show forgiveness, enjoying what is good, and turn away from the ignorant. That one hit me because I used to be real good at hold grudges. If you cross me, I'd cut you off. But that verse said, turn away. Don't turn bitter. And that's hard, y'all, but it's freedom. You start letting go of all that poison you've been carrying around and suddenly your heart feels light again. Now here's what's wild. I started seeing Islam not as something foreign, but as something familiar. It talked about charity, about patience, about mercy. And I thought, man, this sounds like the same God I've been praying to my whole life. That's when it clicked. Truth don't belong to nobody. It ain't owned by East or West. It's God's. Always has been, always will be. And that's when I realized something deeper. You don't need to change your name to change your heart. But if your heart changes, your whole life does. That's the power of that book. It don't ask for your image. It asks for your intention. It don't want your performance. It wants your purity. Man, I done stood on some big stages in my life. Miss Universe, Family Feud, all that. But you know what stage really matter? That quiet one inside your chest. That's where the real show happens. That's where your character performs. When nobody's watching. And when you start living from that stage, you start seeing life different. The Quran taught me success ain't what you stack, it's what you sacrifice. Peace ain't what you find, it's what you build. And happiness ain't a destination, it's a decision. You decide every day whether your heart's going to stay open or closed. And the Quran keeps it open. You know, the more I read, the more I stopped asking what's next and started asking what's right. Because this world will have you chasing the next thing forever. But that book brings you back to the present. It says, remember your Lord often, not once a week, not when things go bad, often. And that's when peace starts living with you, not visiting you. So if you asked me today, Steve, what did the Quran do for you? I'd say it didn't make me perfect, but it made me aware. It didn't give me new eyes, it cleaned the ones I already had. It made me realize that real power ain't in what you can control. It's in what you can surrender. And once I learned that, life got lighter, faith got stronger, and gratitude got louder. I ain't saying I got all the answers, but I know this. God's message is everywhere. And the Quran, that's one of His clearest ones. You don't have to read it to argue. You read it to understand. You read it to heal.